Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Honest J. Nowak. And here on Honest J. Nowak, this is the Detective Comics Extended Universe, or just simply known as the DCEU. You probably could be wondering why it took me some time to get around to it, but considering the fact that I had done the Marvel Cinematic Universe already, it probably would have been enough time for me to simply pull off and try to at least find some good things about the DCEU, despite the many bad things that have taken place. Of course, many people have thought about the DCEU as being slightly more obscured or anything else in any other cinematic universe that tried to follow in line with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the Detective Comics Extended Universe is a whole nother story. Now, first time I ever looked down about it was with a 2013 Superman reboot movie. Now, of course, that was the first ever DCEU movie ever made, but it was also the first ever Superman reboot movie I ever saw in theaters. So this, in turn, tends to raise tons of questions. But of course, ever since 2013, up until this very day, with Birds of Prey coming soon to theaters, that was what the DCEU was. 5 years after the Marvel Cinematic Universe had already been established was when the DCEU tried to follow in line to simply take on the Marvel Cinematic Universe and become quite a competitor. And now, of course, there's a ton of things going around it at this point now, because it just seems that throughout 2019, as well as what could be this year as well, with a few other films coming soon, it just seems that the DCEU was really starting to become a lot better than what it used to be. And that was simply because, of course, different films started to take on as time progressed after the Superman reboot movie took place in 2013, with others including Wonder, Flash, and Aquaman, but there are definitely some bad things about each and every one of them. And I guess the main point about why the DCEU wasn't as capable of performing such excellency during filmmaking like the Marvel Cinematic Universe was, it was mostly because each and every superhero movie that was involved within the universe had no real tie-ins to what other events might take on within. But of course, this didn't necessarily mean that a Justice League movie would be in play, because that was what happened eventually in 2017. But even though it did do okay in the box office, it still received some bad criticism. A lot of DCEU entries have received some bad criticism. And this is mostly in regards to the type of actors that were hired, as well as the type of comedic relief that had to be considered an unsettling and uncomfortable part for most hardcore DC fans like myself. And now I have nothing really against anybody who was responsible for the production of these films, but I guess one thing out there that probably could have been done was that if they made themselves any films out there, any superhero films that had direct tie-ins to other events that would lie in from other hero films, which was exactly what the Marvel Cinematic Universe was going for at the time. And all this time since Iron Man first came out in 2008 was when the series itself started to progress with other superhero films that eventually put everybody together and created the first Avengers movie in 2012. And then 3 more sequels started to come out in 2015, 2018, and 2019, with the 4th and final one being the greatest. So great it was actually able to pull off the current box office record, surpassing Avatar by a mere $500 million. $500,000 just like that is certainly incredible. It's still a ton of money when you look at it that way. But in a way, this just doesn't really seem to make the DCEU look as good as it probably would have. Of course, the DCEU, after Avengers Endgame started to come around to play, they still managed to get a whole lot better. Shazam, on one hand, managed to score 3.5 times its budget, and with Joker, though, that was exhilaratingly amazing. It managed to score more than $1 billion in the box office, as well as earning itself a record of $93.5 million in the box office on its opening weekend alone, that of which is a record breaker. $93.5 million earned in the box office on its opening weekend. Within a 48 to 72 hour span, that's exactly how many dollars it was able to earn, which is a record breaker. And that alone was what made Joker such an amazing movie. But some other things about it included the fact that Joker was accompanied by the psychological thrills and the horrors that accompanied most of today's everyday lifestyle. That is associated with crime and murder. Of course, Joker has hardly had any backlash on it, certainly because of this concept that thrived into taking us back to somewhere in the past, while still recapping most real-life events, in which that did involve gunshots and murder, as well as riots and literacy. And it was all such a really big hit. Just to put it all together, Joaquin Phoenix, of course, had such a fun time at that time, and Joker has even been nominated for becoming an Oscar sometime this year. So in a way, it's just something that made the DCEU way better than what it had been. But I guess the only true way to find out if the DCEU is actually going to become a good competitor again is that if Birds of Prey does really well in the box office, and with others coming soon, we might just find ourselves a good competitor to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Strong competition would be put together in the same way that Nintendo and Sega in the console wars had taken place. But of course, this is a whole new generation of people. And another one is bound to be coming soon. And so, that right there is the DCEU in a nutshell. Lots of things out there didn't turn out to be good, but eventually lots of things out there started to become much better, with Shazam and Joker ending up pretty good deals in the box office. But there's only one way to find out if it'll keep going like that. If Birds of Prey does exceptionally well, then I guess we'll know. But on top of all this, I'm Jay Nowak, and this has been HJN at its finest, currently. And if you want to see more, go down to my channel. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.